All right, I'm always excited to do a national program from Miami to Los Angeles and back. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How about you, Mark?
I'm fine, thank you very much. I really appreciate your participating in our leadership series. It's an important area to talk about, a couple areas we're going to talk about actually. And so I think the best place to start is why don't you let our business audience know who you are, a little bit about what you do in your background.
Sounds great. Thank you. My name is Ken Finneran. Most recently, I was Chief People Officer for the Americas at Hellmann Worldwide Logistics, one of the leading, if not the leading, privately held, family-owned and operated logistics company in the world, headquartered globally out of Osnabrück, Germany. And I had the pleasure of serving there for 9.5 years, most recently for the last 6 as the Chief People Officer for the Americas, which incorporated HR function as broadly as you can imagine it, as well as learning and development and leadership development, as well as also community relations and corporate social responsibility, which I imagine we'll talk about as well.
Yes, absolutely. And where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, but have had stints in Washington, D.C. and several years, about 16 in total, in Europe.
Should I say Achtung bitte?
You certainly could. Wir können auch auf Deutsch.
That's all I heard when I was in the Berlin Convention Center once. Over and over and over again.
Little scary there.
Yeah. Well, this is a leadership series, and what we usually start with is it's a question that usually demands a lot more of an answer. But in short, what's your definition of leadership?
My definition of leadership, I'm not sure it can be boiled down to just a couple of words or even a short phrase, but the way I try to describe it also in the field and to some of our leaders is I think it's a unique combination of vision, passion, communication, and action toward a goal or set of objectives, as well as the integrity and accountability to deal with the consequences.
That's about as concise and right on that I can think of. That's awesome. I'm in the executive search business, have been for years, and but I really consider myself like you in the people business. And I've always appreciated the meaning of the two words human resources, and it's not always understood, appreciated. It's not strategically played well often. In fact, I'm not a big keyword fan, but a lot of times HR has turned into a keyword recruiting person as well. What's your thought on really what human resources is?
Wow, that one could go on for ages as well, Mark. As you know, I think our profession even as a whole even struggles with how to refer to ourselves most effectively. Human resources seems to be now almost somewhat of an outdated title, which indicates the certainly strategic necessity to allocate and utilize those resources wisely and effectively. However, as I'm sure you've heard, there's another popular term of human capital,
right,
that goes a bit further in highlighting the need to invest in the talent for it to appreciate and develop most effectively over time. Then, even more recently, I think companies have gone on and renamed the function either talent management or the people function, which tends to take, I would say, a more holistic view and approach to talent within the organization.
Right.
So I guess I'd say, however we ultimately refer to the function, it's people that are at the core. And when it comes to leadership, people, unlike data, processes, and projects, cannot be managed, but rather only be led in order to release their fullest potential. And that's the tie between HR or human capital or the people function and strategy and leadership is leading the people and being a strategic enabler as HR to help release their full potential.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Maya Angelou, and she had a lot of great quotes. And we always say in our business that people join people and people hire people. You don't join a company per se and all that. But she says something that really epitomizes people. It says, people often won't remember what you said. they very often won't remember what you did, but they'll always remember how you made them feel.
I certainly would concur with that 100%.
Isn't it? It's awesome, isn't it?
It is.
And as we know, talent it's a phrase, but the number one asset. And again, in our business, we try to show the relationship with our clients about how the talent acquisition then is affected by talent development, and then retention is affected also. And then if you have good retention and development, it's easier to have better talent acquisition. It's the circle of life from Lion King, basically.
That's right.
And how have you managed to handle the differences, the complex differences, considering you've worked in the Americas, for example, there's a lot of differences there?
Sure. Well, if you allow me, maybe before I get to those differences and how I handled those, I'd like to go back. One of the things I try to do as what I consider an HR innovator or even an agent provocateur, if you will, which I think is one of those keys to leadership, is challenge some of those phrases that are oftentimes put out there. And the one that in nearly every annual report we see on the first line is that of talent is our number one asset.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I firmly believe that talent is key to any organization's success. However, perhaps surprisingly to you, coming from me as a chief people officer, I'm the first to challenge the blanket statement that talent is the number one asset, because I think that statement in and of itself is a bit incomplete. And what I mean by that is I think highly engaged talent is undoubtedly your greatest asset, as these committed, inspired, and motivated individuals are going to contribute at a much higher level to the overall outcomes of the organization. However, when data from Gallup and other sources show that only 1/3 of the workforce is engaged or highly engaged, we as leaders need to recognize that the rest of our talent is actually hurting the organization and costing it a lot of money by negatively impacting what I refer to as the big P's of profitability, productivity, and proficiency.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result, I think leaders' number one task is indeed to maximize their number one asset, and that is to hire, develop, and retain a highly engaged team and workforce. Now, coming then to the second part about the differences, in regards to the complex differences in the markets, certainly in the Americas, and having sat on the global steering committee for both HR and learning and development, I believe the actions really need to come back to my view of HR, again, as a strategic enabler. In certain countries like Mexico, we actually have a waiting list of industry professionals waiting to join our firm, thanks to our success there and the ability of our managers to forge great personal relationships along the way.
That's great.
Now, in other countries, such as the U.S., we need a mix of corporate recruiting internally and collaboration with external recruiters.
I know a good one.
I've heard of a couple, yeah. So really, whether it's recruiting, developing, engaging, or retaining talent, it's a combination of, I'd say, corporate culture and core values to which we have to remain true, and then the flexibility to address local cultural affinities and needs in a way that will maximize outcomes for all. So in the learning space in Latin America, it meant a lot more personal learning initially, then more instructor-led, even if it was video learning, with a transition to more and more online learning as we went along, whereas in the US and Canada, we were able to move a bit quicker towards more of that self-paced online learning. So I guess in short, I don't think there's any real magic formula for this.
Right.
And I think it does have to be highly customized, which demands a high level of strategic collaboration between HR leadership and then the country leadership teams. I think over the last few years, there's been a lot of talk about the role of the so-called HR business partners and their contributions in this areas. And yet, unfortunately, a lot of the folks who became HR business partners were just renamed HR generalists. And so I actually believe that an HR business partner without this strategic collaboration capability and the ability to strategically differentiate in their local markets would ultimately fail at being an HR partner as well. So I guess coming full circle, if we truly believe that highly engaged talent is our number one asset, then as HR and organizational leaders, I think it's our number one task to appreciate, coach, develop, grow, and inspire this talent for maximum return, but doing so in a manner which acknowledges, respects, and incorporates regional and country specifics, all while staying true to the organization's culture and core values.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And I think it's brilliant because what you're doing is really respecting, not the words in your mouth, but respecting that talent is clearly the most important asset, so you better engage it.
Absolutely. It's an absolute must.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Let's move on to another couple of areas because sustainability, corporate social responsibility, sustainability has been a big topic, of late, and it's going to continue to be a big topic. And we're quite involved in that area. And I always like to talk about, because you can play with that word a lot, sustainability. So I talk about sustainable talent, which
Sure.
means, keeping people successful, winning, developing, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that goes along with, even though it's a different topic, wellness in a company too, because if you keep the talent sustainable, they're going to be healthy, the business is going to be healthy, and so on. In fact, you mentioned titles. 20-odd years ago, Alamo, client of mine out of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, named one of their HR people the director of wellness. And people thought, like, what is that? The director of wellness. They thought it was an artsy whatever type of thing. But they were ahead of their time calling it a director of wellness. So those are huge topics. Do you believe that in this day and age, how a company acts with respect to those areas impacts their ability to recruit the best talent, the right fit talent? And how do you make it financial and business sense to address those at the same time?
Wow, that's a big question and a great question. And not only do I believe it, I've experienced it within our own company, that both sustainability and wellness have positively impacted business results and talent acquisition efforts. We were fortunate enough to just win the 2015 Best Use of Corporate Social Responsibility in HR Award. And I can tell you as an example that this award has been recognized and commented on by more candidates that we've hired in the last 3 months than any other award received by our organization in the last 2 years.
That's amazing.
So, going beyond that, I am very involved in various CSR efforts. You heard me say I'm responsible for our community involvement CSR efforts. But as part of our sustainability pledge and ongoing community involvement, what that's led to now is that Hellmann is now the most talked about and sought after third-party logistics company / freight forwarder among college professors and students in Miami-Dade County, where we have our regional headquarters. This brand building and HR marketing is absolutely invaluable to our continued success, especially as we target students and recent graduates for some of our major talent development programs. So on that talent acquisition space, or if you call it HR marketing, it has been absolutely invaluable with people wanting to join us because of these initiatives. Now, wellness initiatives, I would say, are similar, but actually are much further advanced than CSR initiatives in terms of their measurement and ability to track ROI.
Right.
We've actually worked extensively with our medical providers and our benefits broker in terms of educating our population, engaging them in these activities, and then measuring the outcomes of our wellness initiatives. So while I'm not at liberty to quote exact figures, I can tell you that we've seen a very healthy rate of return, and I'm talking multiples, not just a 1 time or a 1.5, but certain high multiples for every dollar spent on wellness. And that's real dollar savings as a self-insured, self-funded company, not to mention an overall healthier workplace.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I compare a lot of things to sports, and I talk about how do you create a winning culture. And I was talking to an executive of a pro team recently, and in a short version of what he was saying, he says, we always aim to win championships. Every year we want to win championships. We know that's not going to happen every year, but we aim for it. What we do require is that we have consistent, sustainable winning seasons each year. So what you're talking about is part of creating that winning culture, that it factor that you have to have consistent winning seasons. And if you have consistent winning seasons, it means you're attracting the right talent, developing them, et cetera, right?
Absolutely. Well, to play on that comment, having played a variety of sports growing up myself and being an entrepreneur at heart, I am highly competitive and I love to win. I simply love to win. And in this new normal, as I would call it, or VUCA world, I'm sure you've heard that expression, characterized by volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity.
Mm-hmm.
The it factor is probably also a combination of things that's needed to win. I believe that HR and other executives actually have to practice and exhibit what I've called the 5 C's of leadership to become a leadership star. And I guess to continue along with that analogy, that if any one of these 5 critical areas is lacking, all of which begin with the letter C, then the star fails to take shape.
Mm-hmm.
And hence, there would be no winning season or championships. So the 5 C's, because I'm sure that was going to be your next question there, are communication, in fact, complex communication, creativity, commitment, collaboration, and character. Winning leaders in all industries that I've come across and read about have exhibited these time and again to help their organizations win those multiple championships.
That's awesome. I was trying to figure out how to say something that started with a C. That's correct. That's fantastic. Hey, we're gonna continue this on part 2, so don't go away.